Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to this live chat today where we are talking about Ghana elections, the upcoming Ghana elections that will be coming on the 7th of December 2020. So today we have a guest all the way from Ghana, Rabiu Alhassan. He is the managing director of GhanaFact. GhanaFact is the first country's fact-checking organization. We'll look at how GhanaFact is working to tackle misinformation ahead of the general elections. Rabi, welcome to the program. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you very much, Josey, for having me.
All right. So now, what exactly was the inspiration behind you starting a fact-checking organization, Rabi?
Okay, so as of 2019, Ghana did not have a full-time fact-checking organization. And we know Ghana is not too different from any other country around the world where we are seeing the increasing weaponization of misinformation, disinformation, and fake news, and how fake news was being used to undermine democracies. We've seen that play out in the US. We've seen it play out in the UK with the Brexit votes. We've seen it play out in Brazil as well, on the African continent as well. We've seen how fake news is being used to create chaos. So I felt it was quite important that a platform which was dedicated to verifying information on social media, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, was created to actively help in promoting accuracy in public discourse and flagging misinformation. So we kind of conducted a survey of 400 Ghanaians around the country to understand the ecosystem of misinformation in Ghana. And overwhelmingly, more than 90% of the people we interviewed suggested that there was the need for full-time fact-checking to help verify information for the public and to help sift facts from fiction online. So it contributed in the efforts to launch GhanaFact. We launched in August, September last year. And since then, we've become signatories of the International Fact-Checking Network Code of Principles, which is a global media metric standard, which helps in terms of the quality standards that we imbibe in the way we produce our fact-check reports.
All right, so how is the fact-checking that taking space in Ghana? I know that probably you might be having more enemies than darlings because, I mean, people want their narratives, to be portrayed. So how is it going with politicians or even just ordinary Ghanaians?
I think increasingly we are seeing that fact-checking has come to stay in Ghana. So since we launched, we've seen an interesting development where the media is picking up issues with regards to doing the necessary background checks and fact-checking and providing the public with verified information. So traditional media platforms are taking up fact-checking and incorporating it in the work they do. We've also gone around the country as part of a project which is Fact Check for Peace. We've helped 35 media organizations set up fact-checking desks in their newsrooms around the 16 regions of Ghana. And we've also had other fact-checking organizations launched since we launched. Another fact-checking organization, which is signatory to the IFCN, which kind of is headquartered in Nigeria, has an office now here in Ghana called Dubawa. We also have a reputable media advocacy organization called the Media Foundation for West Africa. They launched some fact-checking operations in 2016, but have also revived it leading into the elections in Ghana in 2020. So we've seen some adoption of the fact-checking work, and we hope it plays out well for Ghanaians in terms of providing and arming them with the right information and to help consolidate our democracy. This would inform whatever decisions they take leading into the elections.
All right, fact-checking shouldn't just be about politics or democracy. I mean, you launched it in September 2019, and then December, coronavirus came. Let's talk about the COVID-19 misinformation. How has it been for you, for your organization, in terms of also tackling that aspect?
You couldn't have said it any better. We were thrown in the deep end. We launched, and right after launching, we experienced a global pandemic, and it affected Ghana in some ways. And Ghana was not any different again from how misinformation, the infodemic that came with the pandemic, it's spread right across the world, and we have to actively deal with flagging misinformation, disinformation, fake news around COVID-19 here in Ghana. But what really helped was the fact that the International Fact-Checking Network, they created a collaboration of fact checkers around the world under the IFCN COVID-19 Alliance. It brought together close to 100 fact-checking organizations around the world. And together we drew our strengths and we were able to produce in excess of 5,000 reports debunking misinformation around COVID-19. It's also got support from a number of the internet companies, social media companies. So we were able to actively flag misinformation in a coordinated way on their platforms to ensure we protected lives and saved people. We know of the impact of misinformation and how it's played out in other countries. In a country like Iran, people drank alcohol because they had heard reports that it could help cure COVID-19. So it affects lives, and it's important that we draw our strengths, not just fact checkers, but we can equally collaborate with traditional media organizations and ensure things are done right and the public gets the right information.
All right, in a few days, I mean, Ghana goes to the polls. I know that everybody is preparing for that. How is the atmosphere?
It's electrifying, with the politicians going around the country throwing caution to the wind and not paying attention to COVID-19. That should be mentioned because COVID-19 is not over, but it looks like we are seeing political rallies being organized with people not wearing their face masks, with no social distancing. But it looks like everybody is in the mood, and we are only thinking about the elections, which would happen in some few days. I think in the next 5 days, December 7th. Already yesterday, we saw the special voting where we had officials who would actively be playing some roles in the upcoming elections, mostly the security agency, fire service, and also journalists go to the polls. In excess of 100,000 Ghanaians went to the polls yesterday to cast their ballots in a special voting. But on December 7, we'll see the majority of Ghanaians. We are expecting in excess of 17 million Ghanaians to be going to the polls. They are registered voters on the roll, go to the polls and cast their ballots on December 7. So we would actively be working to flag misinformation. We firmed up the largest collaboration, fact-checking collaboration to deal with misinformation ahead of the election. So we hope we get things right, and we hope to ensure that people don't weaponize misinformation on social media and equally also on traditional media. Hopefully we make a small impact.
All right. I mean, you have plans as an organization on how to tackle misinformation, but what are some of the challenges that you're facing ahead of the elections?
It's the wave, the number of misinformation we would have to deal with compared to the capacity we have to actually respond to the numbers. So it's a relatively new organization. It's a startup, basically. So we are being alerted via our tip line. We have a WhatsApp line, an active one, where we encourage people to send in suspicious claims, things they are confused about, and would see if it meets our criteria, then we produce fact-check reports about that. But the consistency with which we are seeing alerts, both via our tip line and on all the social media platforms we find ourselves, including Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, it's a bit overwhelming. So we are hoping that through the collaborations we firmed up, where we have in excess of 100 reporters spread across the country who are workers of the 35 media organizations we've partnered with so far, we can be able to draw our strengths again and produce fact-check reports, cross-publish our reports, and be efficient in the work we do to basically reach maybe a large majority of the populace in terms of our work. But it's the wave of misinformation we are seeing, and the less capacity we have to match it. That would be one of the key challenges we face.
Rabi, you mentioned earlier that some of the politicians obviously are giving you a hard time because they would want their narratives to be portrayed. So in terms of, you also say that there are a lot of organizations, fact-checking organizations starting up in Ghana. So how would you know that there might be any politician or a party that would also start their own fact-checking organization? How would you balance? Because you have your own organization, then there's another organization. How would you now clash if they say their information is real and you're saying that it's not a fact?
So that's the beauty of fact checking, and the fact that we are signatories to the International Fact Checking Network Code of Principles, which is a quality media standard globally recognized. So we lay out the methodology we use in producing our fact check reports per the code of principles that we work with. And in laying out the methodology, we expect that anybody at all who picks a fact check report can go through any of the fact check reports using the same methodology and come to the same verdict. So that is the amazing thing about the work we do. So regardless of the fact that we have two different fact checking organizations, if we work on the same report, it should be the case that we should come to the same conclusion. And always we try to work with publicly available sources. And we make that very clear in every document we produce. So if someone would ask a question about who fact checks the fact checker, which is something people normally raise, then you, the ordinary man, reading the fact check reports that we produce, because we provide you the opportunity to click on all the links and all the sources we are using to debunk or confirm any information. So you can also independently go into the source document and verify things for yourself.
So is there like a legal framework? If you pick up some misinformation in Ghana, what happens next?
Okay, so for us as fact checkers, we encourage that people alert us to suspicious claims and also issues they are confused about, so we work on it. But we also have an editorial team that is able to independently look out for suspicious information and claims, which we do work on. So as soon as we are alerted to a claim, we set out to work in terms of verifying that claim. We get in touch with the person who maybe the claim is coming from to verify if the person truly is making the claim. We set out to do some research work. After producing our findings, we get back to the person who made the claim to alert the person about our findings, so the person would either do some corrections to it or confirm that he stands by whatever claim he has made, and we make that public. But beyond that, there are laws in the country. The Electronic Communications Act kind of regulates the space in terms of pushing out misinformation. So if you fall short of the law will deal with you. The more reason why we are encouraging people to verify information before they put it out, because if you don't, you might fall culpable to the law, and it will take its course.
So as an example, if the president in his speech gives misinformation or misinform people, what happens next? What does your organization do?
So for the internet companies, we always mention that one needs to verify information before you make it public. You shouldn't think that your social media page or handle or account is an extension of your friendly chats with a friend. It goes beyond that. You should be responsible and ensure whatever you put out on social media are accurate, because the social media companies are being held to account for how misinformation is being weaponized on their platforms. So these companies are also kind of taking some drastic actions, engaging fact-checking organizations to ensure they help flag misinformation and see coordinated activities on their platforms and present the truth to the public. So if you consistently push out misinformation and it's flagged by social media and it's flagged by full-time fact-checking organizations, the social media companies would equally alert you on your page that you are consistently pushing out misinformation. And if you're not careful, you could be struck by the social media companies from their platforms. So you should be responsible enough to verify information before you push it out there. And if the social media companies don't take action, your local country, depending on the laws in there, it could take its course. Because at the height of COVID-19, we had a gentleman who was pushing out some information that eventually came out to be false, suggesting that 5G was the cause of COVID-19 here in Ghana. And he ended up being arrested by the police and being prosecuted. So it's important that people are responsible enough to verify information before they share and before they put it on their social media platforms.
All right, Rabiu, there is a comment that I would want to read. This is a comment from our post earlier. People must never abdicate their personal responsibility to look into facts for themselves. Individuals can discover truth for themselves. The idea that an institution like yours is entrusted with supreme authority to be the arbiters of truth is fraught with danger. All that people need is access to information, which in turn necessitates freedom of speech and association. Once people are free to speak, and as long as there is free flow of information, fact checkers who monopolize their own version of truth become unnecessary.
That's a loaded one. And
What can you say
there are
about that?
yes, there are a lot of themes in there that could be dealt with. Now, he has a point to say that people should be able to independently verify information. But we know that on social media today, we have bloggers, we have citizen journalists, and we have even journalists trying to push narratives on there. And sometimes they don't verify. That is the reality on the ground. And if they don't verify, it's able to trend. People post stuff and it trends on social media, meaning it's reaching a wide number of people. So without dedicated full-time fact-checking organizations helping quell and helping tackle the weaponization of misinformation, it's the misinformation would reach large number of people and it would have whatever effect the person pushing it out wants it to have. And in some countries, it leads to ethnic cleansing. In some countries, it leads to the death of hundreds of people, as happened in Iran, as happened in Myanmar. In African countries where we have very young democracies, if we are not careful, people can sow seeds of discord, just as we are seeing with what's happening in the US, where the fault lines are always being triggered by activities online. So this is crucial that, and in Africa, I should mention, possibly we might have very lots of people on social media who might not even be media literate, might not know how to use digital tools to do fact checking. With a simple click of buttons, you should be able to do reverse image search to verify whether a picture which is going viral is being misrepresented or not. Embed video verification, using Google search operators to find stuff. These things we are trying to educate people about to be able to independently do them. But beyond that, there are others who might not be literate and cannot use these tools. The reason why we are trying to work to help tackle misinformation and to help promote accuracy in public discourse. So he might have a fair point, but the reality on the ground proves that there is the need for the media to take up fact checking and to verify information for the public and ensure that there is no weaponization of misinformation and there's no spread of chaos in countries.
All right, and is it true, or is it is it because of the rise of fact-checking organizations that Ghana government now employs a British and American public relations company, or it was way before that?
That would be a mix of two different things. So for African governments, we always complain about having a leadership problem. So if we see African governments go to the West to engage PR companies to prop up their images and to push out narratives that would help them win votes, that is not something to be encouraged. And it's might maybe be a gray area when it comes to whether it even infringes on the laws of the country. But going forward, maybe African governments and politicians must be transparent when they engage these companies to tell the public that they've done this, and people should be wary of the information that is coming out. But for us as fact checkers, we would only do our work, and we only work to promote truth and accurate information for the public. We are working to promote truth, or the spread of truthful information for the public. It's something we owe the public as journalists, to ensure they get verified information, which informs the work we do. So regardless of what the politicians would do in terms of promoting their narrative, we'll do our best in terms of pushing out the truth, so that the public would know and read between the nuances, or be able to read between the lines as to whatever is happening in the various sectors of the country.
All right, so before we round up, Rabiu, can we take a look at some of the areas and the verdicts that you've reached through the GhanaFact report analysis?
Oh yeah, so we work as fact checkers, and we have various ratings that we use in terms of things that we flag. We go in with very open minds. It's possible that sometimes we see claims and we go in to do our research and it ends up to be true. So some of our ratings, it would include a verdict being true. If it is false, we put out a report that it is false. If it is partly true, where people are trying to maybe use a truthful information but try to massage it to push one narrative or the other, we flag it as such. We are really collaborating with DW Africa to publish a report, and very soon there will be a report out there detailing some of the promises that were made before the 2016 elections and the verdicts that we've come to after researching the promises and seeing whether they have been achieved. So from now till tomorrow, maybe we would only leave it for our readers to visit DW Africa Online to get all the relevant information with regard to fact checking.
dw.com/Africa.
Exactly.
All right, thank you so much, Rabiu. Is there anything else that you want to add before we round up?
Sure. I would want to encourage our viewers, and especially if we have a Ghanaian audience, to pay attention to whatever information they consume leading up to the election. Of course, we'll be expecting information explosion leading up to the election, where lots of people will come online to churn out whatever information to drive a particular narrative. You should be wary and read beyond the headline if you want to spot fake news, if you want to spot misinformation. You should be aware of your personal biases, and make sure you don't easily buy into whatever information you are reading. If you're aware of your personal biases, you sometimes give a critical analysis of whatever you chance on, or whatever you are presented with. And it is important to also know of cloned websites. And when you are reading from a website, pay attention to the URL and know that this truly is the credible website we've always known. Because leading up to the elections, we would see people, all sorts of people, trying to clone websites and drive all sorts of narratives, and riding on the credibility of trustworthy media organizations in the country. We'll duly be producing reports to deal with some of these areas, but people would have to take personal responsibility to read between the lines, and to be able to identify these things, so we don't allow for the weaponization of misinformation leading into the election, and we don't allow people to seed chaos amongst the populace.
All right, not just leading into elections, but overall, COVID-19, everything, misinformation is not good. But thank you so much, Rabiu Alhassan, Managing Director of GhanaFact in Ghana, as we're looking at Ghana on upcoming elections, and we're trying to tackle misinformation. But as Ghana goes to the polls in a few days, we wish you all the best, Rabiu, and your brothers, your sisters, Michael Oti, Eddie Micah Jr. I think those are some of the colleagues from Ghana that I work with. Thank you so much for joining us today on DW Africa. And ladies and gentlemen, I hope you enjoyed and you learned a thing or two But in case you also want to read the report that Rabiu was talking about, just go to dw.com/Africa. It will be definitely there tomorrow. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you very much for having me.